Hello there. What is going on, my friends? Today, it's a Star Wars Armada ship breakdown. We're going to be taking a look at the Imperial Light Cruiser, aka the Arquitens Class Light Cruiser. This is my favorite ship in Star Wars Armada. I'm in love with this ship, and hopefully by the end of this video, you might at least understand what led me to love this ship so very, very much. We're going to be talking about the two different versions available of this ship in Star Wars Armada, as well as the titles, the ways that you can run this, a couple of sample builds, and why I think it is so great. So if you like what you see here, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, all that great stuff. I got links to social media as well as Crabbok.com down in the description below. We have an AI system for Star Wars Armada, so check out all the links down below. Like the video, share the video, all that good stuff. And that's I think that's all the admin stuff for right now. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. And if you want to see more, I'll be putting links at the end of the video over here, or you just go to my channel. You can see lots of other Star Wars Armada and other things like that. So I want to start off today by talking about the basics of the Arquitens. It is a small ship, but it's a 5-hull small ship, so it's kind of a small ship plus, right? A little bit on the tankier side for smaller ships, but not quite as big as a medium ship. It can go speed 3, however, it has one of the most interesting maneuver kind of profiles in the game, in that it's always going to only get 2 yaw at its very last turn and nothing else before then. So navigation commands are extremely useful for most people when they're flying the Arquitens. However, if you get very, very used to this particular strange flight profile, it's almost like the knight in chess, how it's going forward 2 and then turning 1, or going forward straight and then doing like a hard turn. It's able to do that, which does allow it to a lot of times to kind of strafe around enemy formations while usually keeping the forward and side arc. It really excels at kind of keeping the side arc focused on enemy ships, and that's where its kind of strength lies, because both versions of this ship have 3 red dice in the side arc, so it's very much a broadside ship. It wants to fly that way. It excels at flying that way. It excels at shooting that way, and of course it has the turbo laser upgrades to make those red dice do extra good things, and so that's what it is so very, very good at. It is a 2-command ship, though, so you're going to have to plan at least a little bit in advance to make sure you're getting the most out of your command dials. While it is a small ship, it does have 3 engineering, so it's still able to kind of do a little bit of comeback from irreparable damage, and it does have 2 redirects, a single evade, and a contain. The contain is actually surprisingly helpful for a 5-hull ship. It does have 2 shields everywhere, which is a good opportunity to make advantage of those 2 redirect tokens. Of course, the single evade is always nice on a small ship that has a turbo laser option. However, it's always just nice when you want to try to stay at long range, and of course you tend to want to do that with this ship, considering that it is so strong on the red dice front. As we look a little bit closer at the ship's profile, you can see that while I talked about it wanting to definitely keep red dice in the side arcs on its target, its design really allows it to do that with those broad side arcs. It's very easy to double arc with this ship as well. However, the front and rear arcs aren't very strong, so if you can double arc, a lot of times you're only adding a single extra die, so that's not usually its biggest strength. A lot of times this ship is perfectly okay with having only a single shot on the enemy targets. Usually double arcs tend to happen when you get close, and that's when they tend to be a little bit better, because you have an extra die, a black or a blue in the front and rear, depending on which version of the ship you're running. This also helps to kind of fend off people from trying to get too close to you, because now all of a sudden you kind of double your firepower in the front and the rear, respectively. So they're, again, granted that's not much, but the biggest strength of this ship is definitely those wide side arcs that really stretch extra far forward into the front, and kind of really align themselves with this ship's movement profile. Let's talk about the light cruiser first. This is the cheapest version of the Arquitens class. It is a 54-point ship, which puts it in a very, very affordable range. You can run 6 of these in a single build. I don't necessarily recommend that for most people. I don't even do it myself very often, but I have run 5 quite a bit. I think 3, 4, and 5 are really good numbers to run these. I like to run this type of ship in bulk when at all possible, just because 3 red dice isn't too bad. It's not overwhelming for an opponent, but when you have a 3 dice shot followed by another 3 dice shot, followed by another 3 dice shot, followed by another 3 dice shot, and then maybe even followed by yet another 3 dice shot, it quickly can overwhelm even the tankiest of enemy ships. That many shots tends to just destroy and wither away defense tokens very, very quickly. And then when you're able to do that round after round after round, it becomes quite powerful. The Arquitens Class Light Cruiser is a 2-command but only 1 squadron ship, so it's not going to be doing much in the way of being a strong carrier. It's primarily out there to be a gunship, and what I like about this ship is it's very efficient in doing that. It doesn't have a whole lot of extra upgrades, doesn't have a whole lot of extra points. It's not trying to multitask. It's not trying to be good at everything. It's good at one thing and one thing only, and that's shooting enemy ships. It does have a black die for anti-squadron, so it's possible you might get a little flack out of it. I haven't seen a ship that has no anti-squadron at all yet, so of course it's going to have at least something there for anti-squadron. Its engineering value is still, it's at 3. It's not going to be able to do a whole lot there. It does have a black die in the front and the rear, which is good if you do have somebody trying to sort of cap the T on you. If you're going and somebody kind of cuts you off and they try to get directly in front of you, and to try to keep your side arcs from having a shot on them, and especially if they try to stop you from movement, you can punish them with a little bit of extra dice. I tend to really like to run concentrate fire with this version of the ship. One of the very nice things about having a concentrate fire queued up is that if somebody does manage to get in front of you, all of a sudden, it's like I said, it's very easy to double arc somebody with a side arc, even if they are in front of you, because again, that front arc is a little bit on the narrow side, so it's not too hard to kind of punish somebody from getting in front of you. But all of a sudden, people think, oh, your front arc is weak. You have only the 1 red die there as they're making their approach, until they suddenly land at close range of you, and then you show up with a concentrate fire, and then you roll a black and a red, and then you concentrate fire for another black, and all of a sudden you have 6 damage on them out of just your front arc, with also a side arc shot potentially remaining. It can be surprising to a lot of people when you do something like that. Now, that's not the norm, but it is a nice kind of defense mechanism for people who want to get too close, and that's another fun thing about this particular ship. Although, granted, you kind of hope you're going to surprise them first before they get you, because if they do end up at close range of you, you may not live very long. 2 shields and a 5 hull is not all that survivable, but you do have a defensive retrofit that you can put a few things in there if you really want. I usually don't run defensive retrofit on this ship. I usually stick to officers and or turbolaser upgrades. As a red die ship, there's a lot of great turbolaser upgrades. We're going to talk about a couple of those, but I like many of them. There are very, very many good options for this ship, cheap and expensive alike. When we upgrade to the Arquitens Class Command Cruiser, it'll be trading in all of its black dice for blue dice and increasing its point cost to 59 points. So the Arquitens Class Command Cruiser becomes a little bit more expensive, not that much more expensive at face value, especially if you're only running 1. But if you are running multiples of these, which again, like I said, I love to do, that extra increased cost is going to begin to stagger, and it's going to hamper your list building abilities, because not only are you gaining blue dice, you're also gaining an extra squadron point, so now you have a little bit more flexibility for squadron builds, and that can be useful. Although this isn't really the ship that wants to activate squadrons as much, but in this case it can. This is a version that's going to be a little more versatile. Sometimes you want to pay a little bit of a premium for versatility, and this is one of the things you get here. You're also gaining a new upgrade slot. You're going to gain the support team, and that one is very, very good because, of course, it does open the door for many of the really nice support team upgrades. The support team is one of those upgrades that appears on very few ships, but when it's there, it gives you a whole wealth of opportunity, including things like engine techs, which can really take this ship that has very restricted movement and a very specific movement profile and open it up to very wild and unpredictable movement profile against people who are used to seeing how Arquitens fly. And so engine text is a very popular choice for this version, but it's not the only choice, and we'll talk about a couple of those in some of our list building options. But this one also extends its anti-squadron range with the blue dice there, and also extends its front and rear range, which again, those aren't really the things that you bring this ship for. So if you're really looking for a gunship, you probably want to go with the light cruiser. But if you want that flexibility, and especially if you want the support team, I think the support team is probably the #1 reason why people choose the command cruiser over the light cruiser. I don't think it's the increased squadron value, because if you're looking for a better carrier, there's lots of other ships out there, ISDs, even a Victory is a better carrier, or the Quasar, which is a fantastic carrier, or even if you're looking for a carrier value 2, a Gazanti makes for a much better and suitable support type ship that can activate squadrons and also has a scatter standing by. So if you are looking for something that's going to be a little bit more like a jack of all trades with some anti-ship firepower, that's what the command cruiser is going to do. And usually you want to take advantage of that support team, because that's what this one, that's probably the most significant thing that this version has that the other version does not have. And I think, honestly, I think the light cruiser wishes it did have a support team sometimes. I think it definitely does, because I will, every once in a while, I'd say out of 5 out of every 6 games I run command cruisers, but that one extra time I run light cruisers 5 out of 6 times. I'll run 1 out of 6 times. I'll run the command cruiser to change it up a little bit. We do have 2 titles. We have the Centicore and the Hand of Justice available for the light cruiser for the Arquitens. I'll start with the Centicore first. It's a 3-point title. And this one deals with squadron fleets. So this one is good with a squadron-based fleet. It says when another friendly ship resolves a squadron command, up to 2 of the squadrons it activates can be at close to medium range of view. So this is this title initially wasn't all that popular because you used to have Relay kind of in an overpowered state where Relay was kind of like board wide. But now that Relay is not quite as strong as it used to be, this kind of works similar to how Relay used to be. Basically, it doesn't matter how far away somebody is. You could have like a Quasar on the other side of the board, and if you have the Centicore here with a couple of squadrons, that Quasar can potentially activate those. So it's gonna give you a lot of flexibility on range, especially if you have a slower carrier in your fleet. Or a slower carrier with a high squadron value that gives something extra, that to squadrons that they activate. Whether you're getting an extra blue die or something like that. There's a lot of ships out there that do like to take advantage of that, and this is giving you extra flexibility on who you can activate while also keeping your carrier a little bit farther in the back. It's a little oddly placed because the Centicore, like an Arquitens, isn't usually a ship that wants to get really close. So it's I think it definitely works best on an Arquitens that wants to fly forward and kind of be a little more aggressive. But if you are playing it that aggressive and you're putting it that close to enemy fleets, it may not last too long. So you'll want to be very careful in your approach. Maybe try to hide behind some obstacles or something like that to make sure that you're pretty far forward, but maybe not getting blown up in by turn 2. That's one of the ways you want to do it. The Hand of Justice, which is the title I generally prefer, is a really cool title. It's a 4-point title. It says, before you reveal a command, you may exhaust this card to choose another friendly ship at distance 1 to 5 and ready one of its defense tokens. I love this title. It's readying a defense token. Now, this has gotten better as time has gone by. This was initially helpful for like jerk Gazanti builds. If you put basically like getting a scatter ready to happen a second time, or if somebody hits your brace early on your ISD that's moving far forward, all of a sudden you can be like, boom, I'll activate now I get that brace ready to go again. But Hand of Justice also has seen increased playability since the Clone Wars, well, actually since Wave 8, because we got Salvo now. And now all of a sudden, if you're running an ISD2 with a really heavy modified deadly salvo build, you can potentially move that ISD2 kind of far forward. Now all of a sudden it's getting attacked. You can salvo, then you can activate your Hand of Justice, and all of a sudden get to salvo green again on the ISD2, and really to kind of take advantage of that mechanic as well. Again, it gives your whole fleet flexibility, so I think it's a nice one to run in just about any fleet, because almost any fleet has great use for being able to get a defense token from orange back to green. So I really like that. Heck, it's even useful against those crits that say you cannot ready exhausted defense tokens. All of a sudden, this is Well, I guess it does ready it, so if it says cannot, you wouldn't be able to do that. But if it, but all right, so never mind that. But my point is, it's great in just about every fleet. There's always going to be a situation where you can use that, and so it's a very nice. Although it is 4 points, so again, it's still not an expensive title, but sometimes I do find myself running razor thin on points when I'm running lots of Arquitens. So it also works good if you just want a single Arquitens. Actually, both of them work good if you just want a single Arquitens in your fleet. Now, one of my favorite builds for Arquitens are simple builds. So right here, this is very similar to builds that I've been running recently, and that's a light cruiser, keeping it very cheap at 54 points for the base ship. We've got Admiral Titus on there. Just the idea is I like to have a cheap officer. I also like to run Vader as an officer in my fleets, and having the Arquitens out there, they have a lot of dice they can roll, but red dice are, of course, not always the most reliable. So it's nice to have an Intensify firepower somewhere in your fleet, right? And if you can't have that, or even if you do have that, it's also nice to have some rerolls. There's always that chance you're going to concentrate fire and roll, 3 red and then add another red and they're all blanks. So you got like all 3 blanks and an accuracy or something like that. So it's great to be able to have some rerolls. And one of the things that Officer Vader can do for you is if you have disposable officers on your ship, he can throw them out the airlock and give you a full set of re-rolling any number of dice that you want, 1 time per game. And so sometimes 1 time per game is all you need. It's certainly better than 0 times per game. It's 100% better than not having it at all. But the quad battery turrets is a great option for the Arquitens. Generally, if you have a lot of Arquitens flying together, like I like to do, you can kind of keep their side arcs pointed at the enemy fleet, no matter which way they go, because of your 2 yaw at the end of your movement. And generally what happens is, if people want to get out of that big fan of death, which would be like 3 or more Arquitens, all with their side arcs kind of overlapping fire on a big section of the board, a lot of enemy fleets will have to pick up their speed and try to go faster than you. So if you got your whole fleet going speed 1, your opponent's going to have to go faster than speed 1 if they want to catch up to you and if they want to outmaneuver you. If they do that, then you get to punish them by adding an extra blue die. The other thing that's beautiful about that is the quad battery turrets is an extra blue die for every shot. So if they get in your front arc, now all of a sudden you can concentrate fire, and now you can maybe roll a black die, a red die, a blue die, and then throw an extra black die in there for your concentrate fire. And all of a sudden you've got 4 dice out of that front arc that's usually rolling 1 die most of the game. So I really like quad battery turrets because you can do it twice per round. It's very nice. And if it doesn't trigger, that might mean that your opponent's also going speed 1, and if that's a good problem to have, because that means they're never going to catch up to you, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that evade, canceling them out. Again, Arquitens are efficient, and simpler builds are usually better. However, I will talk about some other builds as well. Let's talk about a command cruiser build with engine techs. I talked about engine techs. This is the one that's going to be mobile. This one's going to be getting all over the place. Maybe this is the lead for a couple of other Arquitens or other similar ships, or maybe this one's just a solo ship that's just going around doing fun stuff. Ozzel is going to also increase its maneuverability. He's also fits the role of that disposable officer that I love to have on Arquitens command cruisers, because I'm probably going to have Vader officers somewhere in there, maybe on a Gazanti, maybe somewhere else. But Ozzel, I get to use him at the beginning, then he doesn't do anything else for the rest of the game, so he is perfect for the big reroll. Of course, we have engine techs. We're going to be navving quite a bit. Maybe not always, but at least nav early and get that nav token. So if we have to do other commands, we still have the token to trigger engine techs when we need to, and that's going to be great. If we are going to use a defensive retrofit, I think reinforced blast doors is a good option. Again, I don't always run defensive retrofits, and as a matter of fact, I very seldom do run a defensive retrofit on an Arquitens, but reinforced blast doors is one of those that really realistically could trigger, because you're with 5 hull, and you got 2 shields, you got enough shields and enough redirect tokens to really take advantage of the ability to redirect and keep your ship from dying at the cost of shields, and choosing with a trickle in damage that's likely to happen. So reinforced blast doors is a great way to kind of say, look, I've got like 3 or 4 damage that's already kind of crept in, but this is the turn I'm going to clear all of that and get the heck out of dodge, especially if I have an engine tech's ability ready to go on and maybe hide me behind an asteroid or get me out of that big Star Destroyer's front arc or something like that. And lastly, we went with Enhanced Armament. It's my favorite upgrade for the Arquitens, but it's also by far the most expensive. It is a whopping 10 points, but it just always makes your side arcs throw an extra red die because it increases your battery armament of your side arcs. And again, this ship is, a lot of times it's only going to have a side arc shot. It's okay with only having that because it's relatively a cheaper ship, but it gives you that flexibility of if you need to, weave through an enemy formation, you won't have to worry about if it's just your left side or your right side. You're always going to have it. It allows you to go whatever speed you want and not worry about losing a die like with quad batteries does. And it's a red die also, so it fits into everything else. Works especially good if you do have rerolls available or some kind of dice mitigation. Red dice aren't really that bad, but you're probably, if you're rolling 4 red dice with an enhanced armament, I mean, Concentrate Fire can give you a 5th red die. You're going to have at least 1 blank in there, right? So you got to have a plan for those. So you got to deal with that somewhere in the build. And enhanced armament doesn't deal with that, so you need to have it. That's where Ozzel fits in, because I can have my disposable officer. Maybe I've got intensify firepower in the fleet somewhere. This one works really, really well with both of those things. So having lots of red dice, again, 4 red dice, maybe even 5 at long range, that's great. I'd love to concentrate fire with this build, but it's a delicate challenge on doing nav for engine techs and then concentrate fire for the big long range shots. So you can do a little bit of both and then figure out what feels comfortable for you. Let's do a Centicore build here. We have another command cruiser. This Centicore build here is kind of focusing on going forward, being the tip of the spear, and dealing with anti-squadron stuff. So or dealing with both your squadrons and enemy squadrons, because basically you don't want like a single A-wing coming in and tying up your whole fleet, right? So this one's trying to deal with that. People who do run small screens to really slow down a big squadron build tend to run certain named characters like Shara Bay and Tycho Selchu, or named interceptor pilots for the Empire and things like that. So they love to run these scatter aces. And I put Callus on here to deal with this. Now, granted, this isn't primarily an anti-squadron ship. It's definitely not. However, it's the kind of the role. I'm doing an alternate build here, right? Because this one's trying to support. It's trying to do a little bit with squadrons. You've got Centicore, so your big carriers can still have the squadrons that are up with you. They're going to be protected. Right? If somebody wants to attack you, by the way, you've got cluster bombs. I'm like, when was the last time you ran cluster bombs? How many of you have never run cluster bombs? I bet quite a few of you have never run cluster bombs. Take a look at that card one of these days. This ship's going to die fairly quick anyway, right? Here's a defensive retrofit we can use even if we're dead, which is kind of cool, or even if a shot kills us. But this is a great answer to scatter aces that just might chance their luck at shooting you. Because I was like, oh, okay, you take 4 damage and it's not an attack, so you can't scatter it. You suffer 4 damage. It just happens. Boom, 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 boom. So I really, really like cluster bombs. I just wish there was a way to make them work a little bit better, but at the same time, if they were any better, they might be toxic. So I'd rather them. They're okay, right? They're okay. They're very situationally fun. I think most people who have a scatter ace that see that you're wearing cluster bombs are not going to attack your ship at all. And that's something that you can use to your advantage, because they're going to try and stay away from you. All right, you've got Callus, you've got cluster bombs, you've got linked turbo laser towers, which are great for the Arquitens. It gives you that red dice mitigation that you want. It also can make 1 squadron shot even stronger. All right. We've also got fighter coordination team for our own aces. Again, if they're flying close with us, Centicore and fighter coordination team work well together. This is a very corner case build. This isn't something you're going to be running all the time, but I just thought that this was kind of an interesting outside of the box build as an option for a command cruiser. And last but not least, we have a Hand of Justice build. Now, Hand of Justice pretty much goes in any build. So the Hand of Justice is less about the build of this Arquitens and more about the rest of your fleet. So this goes good if you have maybe a diversified fleet, where this is ideally a ship that's in a mixed fleet, that maybe you've got a Star Destroyer, an ISD-2, which is probably my favorite Star Destroyer to run, especially if you're running Salvo. And maybe you've got a Gazanti in there with Minister Tua, and she's adding that defensive retrofit, so you can guarantee that you're gonna be able to do your scatter when you get attacked. But you run run the risk of, hey, that scatter is now going to be exhausted, and all of a sudden, boom, now your scatter is ready again. Got you back. You know, great support ship. But it also can be a little bit self-sufficient in this kind of build. We're probably going to be focusing on just the single side arc shot, but I put Nita in here to go ahead and give us the extra evade, so we can now use turbo laser reroute circuits. Now all of a sudden we turn those 3 red dice into a very, very deadly attack combination. We have the option to change any one of them to a double without having to without having to exhaust our only evade, because Nita will give us a second evade. A lot of times on a ship like this, you will swap out the contain for an evade, but not necessarily always, but usually you'll swap out the contain for an evade. An early warning system can also help protect you in return by making your side obstructed. So if they want to shoot back, all of a sudden you're like, sorry, you're going to lose a die. You know, you don't have to say it in that voice, so you can be like, sorry, you're going to lose a die. Or you can try in like maybe a chipmunk voice, sorry, you're going to lose a die. I don't know why I'm doing voices all of a sudden. I really like this ship. So with all that said, I think it's time to wrap things up. I want to hear from you. How do you like to run the Arquitens Class Cruiser, the Imperial Light Cruiser, however you call it? I know there's some people that say Arquitens with the KW sound, but I've always said Arquitens. I don't ever do the Quitens. It's always Arquitens for me. Let me know what you guys call it, how you build it, in the comments section. Also, make sure you join our Discord. We have a link to Discord in the description below, so check that out. We've got lots more Star Wars Armada videos, including other ship breakdowns, so I'd love to have you check those out. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this whole channel possible, so thank you for your continued support. I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you so much. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper to infinity and beyond, and always wash your socks. Goodbye there.